My interest in Judaic art was sparked by a course I did on Maimonides, where my learning led me to see it all in visual ideas. This is a difficult niche market to work in, but my research has taught me so much about my Judaic heritage. So I hope you will enjoy the walk through my artworks. My name is Carol Smollen, and I've been a member of South Hampstead for over 20 years. Shlomo actually married us in our garden, and there was a lovely moment when he looked at Archie's khaki shirt and trousers, and then glanced down at his elegant black coat and said, "If you had warned me it was casual, I would have dressed appropriately." My British career began when the Jewish Board of Deputies commissioned me to make a chuppah for a travelling exhibition they were holding. At the time, it was becoming fashionable to have weddings in venues, and the shuls were not keen to lend out their chuppot. So I began to make personalized chuppah for couples to keep as a family heirloom and hand from generation to generation. This became hundreds of chuppahs all over the world: Hong Kong, Stellenbosch, Belgium, Americas. I went to beautiful weddings and met lovely people all over the world. The last chuppah I have made, it was for the Sandy Row Shul in the East End, built in 1896, and they're now using it as a new wedding venue. It is also my last chuppah because they are too big for my arthritic form. Trees are my favorite inspiration. Here I stretch the fabric, then I paint onto it, emboss it, dye it, stitch it, and use what we call fusibles, where we heat set the material. It's entitled Guarding the Unmarked Grave. And here I have used stitched lace to make the leaves. My work continues to embody ritual textiles of the 21st century. In 2001, I was invited to make a mural for the Tolerance Center in Vilnius, and after traveling through all the shtetls and finding my great-grandfather's house, I discovered a miniature Torah mantle which travelers use in case of not reaching home in time for Shabbat. I fell in love with the idea of this mini Torah and determined that I would use all my magical remnants from the chuppot to make a collection of miniature Torah mantles. But instead of dedicated two on the mantle, as is the custom, I used documents and images of importance to the family to hang as an art piece. These are commissioned for bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, anniversaries, presentations. My grandmother's travel document from 1941. 613 is a metal piece that I found in Allenby Street in Israel. I often use found objects and then present them as objet trouvé. My husband's father's travel document. B'chol Vavacha is the Torah I made using a letter from my father in 1944. My parents knew each other for a week and then got married, and she next saw him 7 years later. And during that time she couldn't read his letters because she couldn't read his handwriting. Keep and remember. The couched piece using the turquoise thread. My great-grandparents, the Smollens, and for those South Africans, he was the first Jewish rugby player in 1895 in Eastern Province. The miniature Torah honoring my father's war medals. Lech Lecha, the Psalm, again the turquoise thread of the sea and the sky that we are commanded to use. These miniature Torah mantles were shown at the Yeshiva University Museum in New York. The show was scheduled for 4 months and ran for 9 months. There were 150 Torah mantles in 2 rooms, one room of my family Torahs and one of the more modern. I was hoping to hang these miniature Torahs that are left in the new South Hampstead Shul, but that has not as yet happened. This large velvet wall hanging began as a piece of white velvet. I dyed it navy and then used fiber art methods to discharge the color. I also embellished it I used chiffon, applique, stitching, gold leaf, and it hung in the Cape Town Jewish Museum. Large black velvet wall hangings with all the fiber art techniques that I know. They are entitled Jerusalem Night. Used on the cover of the educational department for the religious studies book. The next few slides are called Stitch Draw. It's a new series and a new technique where I stretch the fabric. I draw first on paper so that I know where I'm going, and then I stretch the fabric and I put it into the sewing machine, and I use my sewing machine as a pencil to draw with thread. Family portrait when I went to New York to watch my granddaughter play football for Great Britain. The Shibori silk wall hanging to show the brachot that's to be said at the sight of beautiful flowers and trees. Shibori is a Japanese mark-making method which is the basis of most of my work. You tie and stitch and tighten it into folds, and that's what makes the marks. Challah covers, commissioned challah covers, of which I make many. The first one is a velvet, and the second one is a satin silk. In South Africa, I worked as a ceramist, but did not bring my kilns with me. Here are some ceramic examples of my earlier work. Very large ceramic wall hangings made with porcelain, and they are panels which hang on the wall. A panel called Aleinu, made in stoneware. Also stoneware with porcelain on top. I had a series of exhibitions called Fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls. During this exhibition, a Muslim gallery owner came along to the show and asked me if I could make artwork that was a little less Jewish and a little more Muslim. I had to go to the imam to learn to write the Bismillah Allah correctly to accept his commission, as is in Jewish art where you have to be absolutely correct. So here you see pieces of the commission, which ended up being 340 pieces. Took me 2 years to make, and it nearly finished me off. Another example of a large velvet mural. This hangs in the foyer of Jacob's School. The Torah mantle I donated to the Sea Point Shul last year when they lost their Torahs in the Hanukkah fire. The long velvet mural, a wall hanging, of the Dohani Jewish Center and Synagogue in Budapest. I've shown the front of the building, the interior of the shul, and the memorial garden at the back, where in 1944 they buried all the Jews in mass graves. It's a 3,000-seater synagogue which absolutely blew me away, and I have done it in lace and silk and threads, and I'm hoping that Tom and Jill will help me hang it in Budapest. I feel extremely privileged to have lived a life of art, working in my own studio since I was 19, and having the opportunity to exhibit in galleries and museums all over the world. I've had many wonderful commissions in buildings, the new hospice, the foyer of the Constitutional Court, and been invited to make commissions for Nelson Mandela, Buthelezi, the Zulu chief, who has a wonderful art collection. And here you see me with President de Klerk. I was a redhead at the time. I hope you've enjoyed seeing my artworks. If you'd like to make contact with me, go to my website at www.carolsmodernfiberartstudio.com.